What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Surreal Body Podcast. My name is Zeke Samples, and I'm with Dr. Nick Ciotti. How you doing, Nick?
Oh, doing good, doing good. Good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you too. I know we've been busy this week, and we wanted to put something together for all of our listeners. Really, this is a background story of who we are and why we're creating this podcast. We've been collaborating for quite a few months now, and we feel like the non-Western medicine route is very important. It's growing stronger, and we just want to be able to give back education to the community, because there's so much that you can see and read and be misled on throughout, the Google funnels. So we want to make sure that everybody's educated, and we do it with a presence of collaborating with other minds, people we've heard and interviewed and had collaboration with as well. So glad that we could do this. And yeah, how's it been
For
going with you
sure.
this week?
Oh, it's going for sure. And yeah, I think kind of what you had just said, one of the things we want to do is there's a lot of good people out there putting out good content. And I think for people trying to kind of take control of their own health, they're almost desperate for information that they're not getting from maybe their, primary care physician in medical health care. And yeah, I think me and you just want to amplify some of those voices that, we listen to and we consume, because part of this journey is constantly learning. And I mean, it definitely doesn't stop. You can know a lot, but you're never going to know it all. And there's always, more to learn for sure. But I think, me and you just want to help cut down the learning curve, because yeah, it can be quite overwhelming when you start your journey into educating yourself on health, fitness, and especially trying to fix some of these chronic health conditions that we're seeing a lot of our patients and clients dealing with on a daily basis.
And it's evolved so much over the past few decades. I mean, I'm 44 now, but when I got into this health and wellness arena, it was because I stumbled into it. Really, I was kind of the slug teenager. I was overweight throughout my childhood and even you know adolescence and teenage years, and through that I developed scoliosis and kyphosis in my spine. And some people say that that's hereditary, but further studies and my research have led me down the path of understanding that it can come from something that happened traumatically, whether it's a blow to the head or something to the body that might have stimulated a transition of a growth pattern in the spine. So I actually was diagnosed with both of those, and as a teenager at 14 years old, and I had to wear a back brace for 2 years, and kind of self-taught myself about nutrition and exercise.
Well, and when you and I first met, I think that was something we had connected on, because my dad's actually a chiropractor. So, you were telling me this story. And of course, I've heard the word scoliosis before.
Yeah.
And yeah, environmental factors, and whether genes are involved or not, what we're learning now more and more, and it's not totally new information, but I think it's getting more popular, is this idea of epigenetics, where the environment is turning genes on and off, and these genes have multiple different expressions that can be turned on and off via the environment. There's really very, very few true genetic mutations that, like Tay-Sachs disease, or, like a chromosomal disease like trisomy 21. I mean, or like sickle cell anemia. These are true genetically inherited diseases, but it is a very small percentage of chronic health conditions out there. Blood pressure, diabetes. Oh, do you have a family history? Okay. Yeah, you've got a family history, but doesn't mean you're doomed to high blood pressure for the rest of your life. Those type of conditions are very, very manipulative via the environment to turn these gene expressions on and off. So yeah, so you were in your mid-teens when that really. I mean, did you notice as a kid that it was you were having issues slowly getting worse, or was it like you woke up one morning and like I got an issue, and you go see a doctor or a chiropractor and they diagnosed you with scoliosis or kyphosis?
Yeah, I didn't even know. I mean, I came from a family that was athletic. My brother was in NASCAR. My dad was past NFL. He was also in the military. Mom was an alternate on the Olympic swim team. So I think they more or less saw something due to posture. And when I
Yeah.
had a doctor's appointment, that was the eye revealing moment. And things have evolved since then. But back then, they would cast your whole body. So how
Yeah.
people break their leg or their arm and they get a cast and they're molded to that. I mean, I was on a table being molded for my entire midsection, and I wore this back brace for 2 years, and it had two straps, and the straps were held together by these metal plates, and if you pulled the straps too much it could bend the metal plate, and
Mm.
it was challenging, but we I was able to take that brace off when I went to sleep and when I showered. Those were the only two times. The rest of the time I was told to wear it, and had to go to rehab, had to do exercises and things that would start to correct it, because I had just enough growth platelets left to do that. So yeah,
So
that's when it all.
during that 2 years, was that a time where you started really researching and trying to learn about holistic health, and you were coming up with that game plan of like, what am I going to do?
Yeah, it was. And keep in mind, this was 1994 through 1997 or
Yeah.
1996. So, I mean, there was no iPhone. So our listeners and people that are in their 20s right now, I mean, the things that we had access to were very limited. It was, around the whole time of Google and new evolving things of websites. So research was few and far between, and the access to it was few and far between. There was no AI, so having to really dive into more magazines, periodicals, research
Yeah.
that was all written, and that you had to navigate through. So for me, it was from a fitness side and nutrition side, it was just bodybuilding stuff. I mean, not that I
Yeah.
had the
Yeah.
goal of wanting to be somebody that competed at that time, but that is the path that I followed, because those were the people that looked the part, right? So I thought, if I look like these people, I'm not going to have any problem. So I pursued just the studies through Muscle and Fitness and Flex Magazine, and the exercise routines I found in there, and through that I learned about nutrition and how they coincided together, with your sleep patterns and with tissue repair and red and white blood cells. So a lot of that stuff just really collaborated and came all together, and I really started to develop a passion for it, because it was scientific, and it was deeper than just, hey, go to the gym and do a couple of sets, so you can recover from last night's hangover or something. it was
Right.
it was because I learned that endorphins can be released, serotonin, dopamine, all these things that, people struggle with nowadays. Fast forward 20 years, there's so many different medications for almost everything. You open your
Right.
jacket pocket on the guy around the street and he's got some prescription for something you're suffering with. And back then it was very limited. It wasn't like that. So
Yeah, and nowadays I know social media is a huge topic of conversation, which obviously we all partake in. That's part of what we're doing here, and it's that double-edged sword where there's so much information you can learn, and social media is very positive for connecting people, but there's that dark side of social media that is stealing those, and they're hijacking those endorphins, and they're causing some of that addiction, taking you away from doing physical healthy things, and instead you're getting this false dopamine hit by scrolling on a phone. And it's something that definitely we didn't have to deal with in the 90s. I mean, it's pretty wild. So that's definitely one of those topic of conversations. But yeah, it's interesting that bodybuilding was what, because you said you come from relatively athletic background, so no one in your family was really big into bodybuilding specifically versus I know you mentioned football and NASCAR, so obviously athleticism, but bodybuilding, at age probably 15, 16, I kind of came to the same conclusion as a, kind of skinny fat kid who was maybe a little low in confidence. And my dad. I just always saw my dad in the gym, and I thought, hey, it's time to do something. And man, I loved the bodybuilding community. It was just, there's something about it for sure that's very attractive, besides the physical aspects of it. But yeah, the discipline involved in bodybuilding. And would you say that bodybuilding was very responsible for you developing a lot of your personal discipline in other areas of life too?
I do, because there's very few sports that you can pass or fail and you're 100% responsible. Think of individualized sports, or even the military. You're as a
Mm-hmm.
team in the military, but if you make a mistake or do something outside of training,
Right.
your job is to not only take care of yourself, but to protect your brother, protect your family. So
Right.
never leave a man behind. And it's the same kind of discipline mindset you can have with sports that are solo sports. Golf, for example. I mean, if
Yeah.
there was,
Maybe
who was
boxing
it
or
that
MMA.
who was it? Was it John Daly that was a self-admitted alcoholic? Yeah, I mean, but he played golf drunk all the time, but he was a pro, and it just happened to work for him, I guess. But
Yeah.
he said he could have been so much better if he hadn't have done that, and he ended up um, getting out of those syndromes. But with fitness and exercise, for me, it was just the passion of being able to take care of my own body. And I was disciplined enough to have a fear. I feel like fear was my first installation emotion, because I knew that I didn't want to have metal rods put on my back or any surgery.
Yeah.
And this was my
Right.
only option. This was my only choice. So I think it was more fear motivation. So for 2 years, it was blood, sweat, and tears. It was focus. It was studying. And I had my last doctor's appointment to really decide on if I was going to have surgery, if I'd done my due diligence enough. And they said, well, congratulations, you don't have to wear the brace anymore, and you don't have to have surgery either. And it was more like a golf clap moment to me. So it was like, okay, next. And then I thought, this is not the way I want this to end. Like, this wasn't a finish line for me. I felt like this needs to keep going, but it needs to keep going with momentum in a positive direction. So all this time that I read magazines and found out who was good in the industry, at the time, the golden age, it was, I mean, bodybuilding wasn't really popular till the 70s. And then it became something that was popular with Arnold Schwarzenegger. And then the
Right.
80s. I mean, when my dad was playing pro sports, they told him to stay out of the gym. It would slow you down. I mean, look at how
Right.
the athletes evolved. I mean, even, and when I say bodybuilding, anybody builds the body. You can be 65 years old and 30 pounds overweight. And if you start going to the gym, you're building the body. You're a bodybuilder. I don't
Right.
label it to something that is limited to somebody getting on stage and
Right.
competing.
Right.
But at that time, I just wanted to see how far I could take it. And I reached out to Lee Haney, who was 8-time Mr. Olympia at the time, and Chris Aceto, who was a world ranked nutritionist. And they both took me under their wing, and I progressed from there. But it was because I wanted to continue the journey that, and turn it into something more than just an obstacle that I had overcome.
Yeah, and I think that's a really important point too that you just made there, as far as, whether it's health, entrepreneurship, business, just general success in anything. I mean, mentorship is just so huge. And the fact that you went out there and got really major mentors is just, if anyone wants to know the cheat code for anything in life, mentorship is definitely one of them for sure.
Yeah, I always say you're a combination of the top 5 people you surround yourself with, and those people can always evolve too, and they're in different stages of your life. You could have people that need to rise you up and mature you at a young age, and then those people have completed that job, and now you're a little bit older, and as you move to the next level, it's somebody else. Like with you and your practice, I mean, from where you evolved, you're going to have mentors through college, but then now you're going to have them as you're going through your doctoral program, so they all evolve as well.
Yeah, for sure. And now that, my wife and I are opening a private practice, now we're finding a new group of people who maybe already have a private practice that's extremely successful for the last 15 years. And if you can connect with those people and make those relationships, yeah, they're going to teach you things and cut the learning curve big time, which we have already experienced and have been fortunate enough to, meet some of those people. And yeah, sometimes, you just got to kind of have the confidence to go up, put yourself out there. And yeah, you might try to, uh, on the note of, yeah, you might try to go find a mentor and get turned down. I remember I joined working for this huge company when we lived in Grand Rapids, Michigan for a couple of years when my wife was doing a residency. And I mean, we're talking about a company that owned at the time maybe 80 Pearl Vision practices. I was like, man, he's got 80 practices he's running. Like, he could be just such an awesome mentor. I'm going to reach out with him. I'm going to try, but wasn't that friendly. Uh, he was a little busy to talk to little old Nick Ciotti, and I was like, okay, but like before I even started, I was looking at it from that point of view, like maybe this guy could be a mentor. Didn't play out, but then you're going to find other mentors in life, and you just have to constantly be open to the idea, because you never know who it's going to be at the end of the day. And yeah, you got to try though. You got to connect, you got to try. If you keep yourself in a little bubble or a vacuum, it's going to slow down your progress.
And you don't want to look back at missed opportunities either.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think, it's really cool that now we can do things like podcasts and stuff like that in order to maybe get some of that information and kind of a virtual mentorship. And even like, with being a personal coach and a personal trainer, that's what you're doing. And that's just what you have to do to help others. And when you help others, you're really helping yourself too, because when you start teaching something, that's how it becomes more concrete than it ever could. But yeah, it's learning and mentoring and all of that. It's just really cool to hear you got in with some of these really well-known guys. And yeah, I mean, I'm sure, because what were you, 16 when you met them, or was it 18, or how old were you when you really dove into, I mean, you dove in if you started working with those guys.
Yeah, 16 and a half. Yeah.
Yeah, that's something else. So when did you actually start training and coaching people?
I would say, I mean, people would come up in the gym and ask me questions, but I feel like I got some of the initial respect after I won a teenage national championship when I was
Yeah,
18. Yeah,
gotcha.
at that age, that's about the time I opened up my first personal training business, because I thought, I could make this into something where I maximize people's potential, but also get paid for it, of course. So
Right.
I I started to do that and opened up my first gym, and then it was a personal training studio, and then from there it expanded to having trainers working at the facility underneath me. So it grew into something that was very productive. But we didn't focus on athletes so much. We actually still focused on the business professional. So I feel like that's a niche that we're really good at, and that always needs some form of health education, whether it be physical exercise or whether it be just recalibrating your body back to homeostasis, with pH
Yeah.
balance and hormone levels.
I think it's nice to work with that group of people because they are the motivated individuals, but a lot of times they get caught up in the business side of life and they let their physical health go. And this concept that, I mean, without your physical health, does any of it really matter? I mean, and not to mention, these people tend to want to be high performers, but they don't understand that their performance might be suffering because they are sacrificing some of their, physical health.
Right. Yeah. And just being teachable too.
Right.
There's so many levels that somebody could have to make those sacrifices, whether it's in job or in family. There's just more and more stresses throughout life. And I feel like as technology advances too, and as our food evolves, which are things we're going to get into in further podcasts,
Right.
there's so many different things that just tie into the obesity pandemic of our society.
For sure. So what are the most common things people are coming to you to work on? I mean, is obviously weight loss, I would assume, is one of the major things, but you're also, with your background, I'm assuming people are coming to you for muscle for gaining muscle and just all around body composition. Do you do a lot of work with people looking to work on specific chronic health conditions also, or is it more the muscle gaining, weight loss, getting more fit?
Well, I kind of encapsulate a lot of different avenues. So my avatar is focused to anybody over 35 years old up to 70 or 80 years old, and you don't really need the gym. So with my education, I promote it more with a holistic approach to an all natural weight loss product. Now we've got so many different people are going for the shots and people are going for the
Right.
stimulants, and all those things are just wrecking your body. It's not teaching you anything. It's getting you to a false finish line. And
For
there's
sure.
an old saying that really resonated with me. It was, if you have a fish in a fish tank, do you drug the fish or do you clean the tank? So many people are just drugging the fish and going to the links that are getting them a fast result, but they're dealing with so many different consequences. But my professional background also has a plethora of exercise technology, and because I've been trained by the best in those arenas, so I do actually have a few different ways that I do it. A lot of my training is online based, but I also have workout structures and plans in place for people. But it just depends on what they come to me for. There's diabetic protocols. There's protocols for all kinds of different situations that the person could be in or be out of. They could have diagnosis for numerous issues, and then they want something that's more of a holistic approach.
Yeah, which I'm hoping, and I think I see some of it happening where medical doctors are recognizing the limitations of your standard Western medicine, and some of them are bringing in some of these more holistic approaches. In reality, your average primary care physician at your average facility in your average town in the United States is still a little behind. And the pharmaceutical industry still has a very big influence in those places. But I think we're seeing the pendulum swing where it's gotten so obvious and so bad that there's no choice but for a lot of people waking up to the lack of real solution to root cause problems. And diabetes is a big one I focus on. It's such a nutrition problem and not a drug problem. Is your type 2 diabetes because you have a metformin deficiency? I mean, I don't think so.
Right.
But they're treating it that way. So what are some of the most and I know in my situation as a, eye care physician, diabetes really caught my attention over the last 6-7 years. I'm getting a lot of patients coming to me for diabetic eye exams. And I mean, as I started practicing, I just was like, oh my God, this is getting out of hand. What are some of the most, besides the clients coming to you for weight loss, muscle building, what are some of the common health conditions that you're seeing the average person dealing with that might either be a surprise to everybody or not be a surprise, but just like, we are seeing way too much of this?
I would say it's not things domino effect and from one to another. So I could say gastric bypass. We have a gastric bypass protocol. I could
Mm-hmm.
say pre-diabetes, but ADHD.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
that's a huge one that I see commonly. I mean, it might be somebody that doesn't suffer from a major chronic health concern, but they have other things that have put their body down a path of weight gain. Because one of the biggest reasons for weight gain is the toxins in your body, and
Yeah.
you have to remove the toxins. You have to clean that fish tank in order to be able to get your body set up and prepared for weight loss. I feel like a lot of people are also underhydrated, as crazy as that sounds. I mean,
No, for sure.
and people look to other forms of liquid to satisfy their cravings. Coffee, tea, soft drinks. That's not water. Those are
No.
all mixed with things that your liver and your kidneys have to digest, and
Yeah.
you need to make sure that you have high levels of liquids inside your system as well. And that's really one of the root things that I have throughout the weight loss program is high water intake, high liquid intake. I mean, you and I live in Florida, but regardless of where you live, I mean, Florida is very important during the summer to stay hydrated.
For sure. And yeah, I think when I talk to patients sometimes, the lack of awareness on how detrimental these drinks are that people are drinking every day that's not water. And
Yeah.
it's crazy. Some patients will tell me to my face, I don't like water. Like, that shouldn't be a sentence in anybody's vocabulary. I don't like water. Like, okay, well, if we even want to, and there's some times where I'm talking to people and I know I'm talking a little bit to a brick wall. They're just not there yet. They're not ready. But I mean, yeah, the fact that I have enough that's happened to me multiple times on multiple occasions. Yeah, I don't like water. Well, we're gonna have to fix that a little bit, because I promise you, you like water. It's you kind of need it. You are made out of water.
And I mean, people can flavor the water. You know, they could put
Sure.
lemon in there. That's
Lemon, amazing.
yeah. They could also do cucumber. They could put some fruits in there, like some
I'm tea.
blueberry.
I'm a big tea fan.
Yeah,
You go find a tea that you like. Look, me and my wife do it all the time. We'll brew tea and then we'll put it in the fridge so it's cold. So it's, a cold brewed tea. It's got some, passion tea, green tea, whatever.
yeah.
But yeah, then you're hydrating yourself. It's got a little flavor if you really can't stand the blandness of water, even though I think if you have those thoughts, you need to work on getting over that a little bit. But and that all comes with people that really want to take control of their health have to be willing to change. You have to be willing to change, because the reason you've got to this point in your life with these health conditions, it's a result of who you are, and you need to change parts of who you are to create a new body and a new person. Keep the good parts, but we got to change the parts that are causing issues. And if the part of you that says I don't like water, we have to change that. I mean, we literally need to reprogram your brain. We need to rewire your brain so that's not a thought anymore.
And it's structure. You know, people have structure in other things. Sometimes I hear clients say, well, that's just too complicated. I don't think I could do that. Well, right there, you and I know that you have no will, there's no way, so you just shot yourself down. But if you
Right.
go past that, you could argue, well, you wake up and you do A, B, and C, just now change A to something else, change B to something else, and add
Right.
D, E, F. It's the
Yeah.
same. You just have to reprogram the person's mind, but give them results and processes that they can accomplish,
Yeah.
and keep them accountable. There's a lot of things that I help coach people along, depending on if they're traveling. I have some
Right.
traveling tips and protocols. I have one um, client that works for a major shipping company, and she travels all over the country and even the world. And she was wanting to lose weight. She's wanting to stay on task. So when people start to see results, they start to have a little bit of fear, like, oh no, what am I going to do when this is an obstacle I don't know the answer
Right.
to? But just being there for them and giving them teachable tips and how to travel with certain things can really help put somebody's mind at ease. And I'll never forget when I was training, one of the I would, I was about to say the hospitals, the airports are terrible with having access to foods that aren't processed, right? And if
Yeah.
they do have something, then it's something that either costs $20 or $25 because it's that much better than everything else you can get for $10. It's terrible for you. So there's a budget concern too. And you actually can get through security with ice packs as long as they're frozen and not liquid. So if you're going through and you have a few meals that you want to pack on the plane, you can do it with a hard ice pack. And there's actually some times when I used to pack meals in my my checked bag, but the meals were frozen. So by the time they made it to the destination, they're
Time
just
it
now,
just right.
yeah, they just now unthawed, and then I just stick them in the refrigerator when I get to my destination. So whether it's a budget concern, whether it's something that makes me want to stay on point, as if I'm disciplined to do that, when you go on vacation, it just seems like everything goes out the window, right? You don't have to be
Oh yeah.
accountable to work. So let's just do whatever we want to. We're on vacation. But I've just chosen to keep some of those things that are important to me within my daily routine while I'm on vacation. And it's really just been a lifesaver because it allows me to save money and put it towards, something else that I'm doing while I'm on vacation, or it allows me to feel better about myself because I'm still doing the right things for my body.
Right. And I think it's daunting for people who are just trying to start where like, you obviously were deep into it by age 18. You're, winning bodybuilding competitions. For people who are 53 years old, just getting diagnosed with high blood pressure, cholesterol issues, and type 2 diabetes, I think it's very daunting. And a lot of people come in with that mindset of like, it's too late. But I think trying to encourage people to realize that you just have to start now, and it's not going to be perfect in the beginning. It's not going to be perfect. I deal with it personally in my life all the time. Every year I go through, I'm going to do 90 days of this, I'm going to do 30 days of that, and every time I do it, I get better at it, and then by the time I'm done, that stupid finish line I put in place, and I fall off because I'm like, well, I did my 90 days. And the older I get and the more I repeat these things, I realize I learn how to incorporate them permanently into my life. And that's the whole concept of lifestyle, and
Right.
really, really changing your lifestyle. But it's just not going to be perfect, but you have to start. You got to start, and you got to just remember why you're doing it. And yeah, the vacation thing is such a good point, because I think most people have experienced that vacation effect of it all goes out the window, and then when you get back from vacation, you're like, well, I messed it up, I'm just, I'm not going to bother, it's just it's too hard, or whatever the excuse is. And I think you've talked about self-negotiation, and I know I struggle with it to this day, negotiating with myself all the time. That you can build that muscle, though. You can build that muscle of the you have to label that part of your personality that's negotiating. It's the classic, I got the devil on this side, I got the angel on this side. It's a muscle to ignore the devil on the one shoulder. It's because it's always going to be there. My example is, I got into the whole cold plunging fad probably 4 years ago when COVID really started kicking. I was like, dude, I'm getting my cold plunge. It's good for your immune system, blah, blah, blah. That is a crazy exercise of self-negotiation. When you're standing in front of that thing, the amount of thoughts that come to your head that you could be doing, all of a sudden, I'm like, maybe I should go do my laundry. And I hate doing laundry, but when I'm standing in front of the cold plunge, it's like, I'll really start negotiating. But that's just an example of something that helps me with that, regardless of all the health benefits of cold plunging. Just that muscle of beating the negotiating with myself. I love that. And I think going to the gym and lifting weights, doing your AM cardio, your PM cardio, just getting in those habits builds that muscle of that self-negotiation issue.
Very true. I mean, I just did a Instagram reel on social media about ADHD and overcoming it or helping it naturally. And it was tied into exercise and just doing
Right.
something that would challenge your brain, release those endorphins and focus your body towards healthier patterns.
Yeah. And I can testify because I have been diagnosed with pretty moderate severe ADHD, and it's something it's really the only diagnosis I've ever really had to deal with. I've never had any major health issues or whatever, but ADHD is something I've always battled with, and my parents wouldn't take me to a doctor to go get diagnosed with it when I was a kid. I grew up in that holistic, life, and whether I had it or not, it was kind of irrelevant. And then you can go down the rabbit hole of what it even is, and is it a chemical? Some people treat it as a chemical imbalance. Regardless, it's part of my personality, and I have had to learn how to manage it and how to work with it. And doing it's so crazy how getting in a routine makes it like a dog, literally. Like if you've ever owned a dog before, dogs are really good with routine. And your body is like an animal that needs to be trained, and the mind and the body have to be, the mind needs to be in control of the body. And I think what's happening right now in society is most people's body are in control of their mind, and that's where they lose the negotiation battle. The body says it's hungry, we're going to eat a muffin. The body says I'm bored, we're going to go scroll social media. The body says this hurts, I'm not going to lift this weight anymore. Whatever it is, there's a lot of imbalance between the mind body connection. And that's going back to this holistic view of health. When you go to a medical doctor, there's almost no talk of the mind. It's, oh, well, I'm a heart doctor, so I'm going to look at your heart. I'm a kidney doctor, I'm going to look at your kidney. I'm a foot doctor, I'm going to look at your foot. No one's looking at the whole thing, especially the mind. And whether you want to go down a spirituality route or whatever it is, it's and we keep trying to learn more about consciousness and what it is, but there's no question that when you ignore the mind when you're trying to take care of the body, you're not going to have that great of results.
Yeah. I've trained people. I mean, consider a person with Hashimoto's disease or irritable bowel syndrome or Down syndrome. Their battles are daily. I mean, they have certain protocols and requirements in their daily lives just to survive. I mean, they want results just like an individual with fewer personal limitations, but individuals with limitations who don't quit, those are the ones that inspire me the most. I mean, look at me. I would have set off a TSA security metal detector every time I walk through if I had settled for having rods secured to my spine. I would probably never have been as dedicated to the gym or my diet if I had been through that challenge in my teenage years. So my role models, I wanted to have similar values to my own. I wanted them to be well rounded and balanced with their display of character that they showed me. And I wanted to be associated with anyone who positively benefited from what they represented, not only as an athlete, but as a person. You know, teaching patience and ethics from an athletic perspective, I want people to know how to change the perception of their abilities to mirror what they desire to become. And I feel like everybody can do that. You just have to, I do it from a nurturing coaching perspective. That's just always been my style. It's never been somebody that, shoves it down your throat, because you're going to have to want it just as bad for yourself that I want it for you.
And I mean, isn't that what's missing in healthcare, is the coaching and the nurturing? I mean, your doctor has maybe 5 minutes to see you face to face. A lot of times now, the business model is you don't even see the doctor. You are seeing a physician's assistant, or you're seeing an RN, or you're seeing whatever. And then the doctor is basically there signing off on drug prescriptions. The lack of coaching and nurturing is a huge part of the piece of the puzzle that's missing, that could fix a lot of problems and healing people. It's kind of crazy when you think about it that way.
Yeah, they just have to have conviction. I mean, what would your life be like if you improved just 1% every day?
Right. In 100 days, you'd be great.
Yeah.
And, that's why I've always used I'm going to do a 90-day challenge. And I still do it today. I pick one thing I want to work on, and I'm like, okay, I'm doing a 90-day challenge or whatever. And again, I'm learning that setting that finish line sometimes is detrimental, but it gives you a little challenge. You do it, and then by the end of it, you have acquired a new skill, and then you figure out how to incorporate. So instead of looking at it as deadlines now, I look at it as, at the end of the challenge, figure out how to incorporate it into my daily life permanently, or my long-term life permanently, even if it's not daily, something I do once a week or whatever it is. So that you got to gamify things a little bit, which again is kind of part of coaching. And which kind of brings me to another thing. What do you find that you're using? Because I'm a pretty firm believer, after experiencing it for myself, that you really change what you track. And what are some of the tools you're using? for tracking progress and, gamifying results a little bit. And just for as an example, I know something that has made a huge impact in my life in the last 2 years is I wear one of these Whoop straps, and I just can't believe the looking at some of the things I do on a daily basis now versus 2 years ago. And it was straight up from just seeing the data in my face. The whole ignorance is bliss thing. I mean, not really. Like ignorance just allows you to keep doing something that's potentially detrimental for you, and thinking that it's not a problem. So what are some of the tools that you find maybe you're using in your personal life, or you find that work really well with some of your clients?
I feel like when I was taught by my mentors what to do, and I discovered that those things worked for me, that's when I discovered what worked for my body.
Mm-hmm.
So not everything is cookie cutter and works for everybody, but when you have proper coaching, you're going to have results from that experience that you have. And then it's just about replicating those results. Like I know when my body fat's low, I'll start to have almost um, glycemic shocks if I wait too long to eat, if I'm incorporating cardio. Now, that doesn't mean I can't fast, but that just means if I'm doing a lot of exercise, I know I have to eat. So if somebody stops to talk to me in the gym, I've got to grab my shake and have a conversation with them while I'm consuming calories because my body's dialed in. So over
Right.
time, I haven't used a lot of devices to help me. It's good to know where my heart rate is. It's good to progress my goals to a 12 week plan. I want to be this much stronger, or I want to improve on this or that. The biggest thing that I teach people is if you hear the acronym, if it ain't broke, don't try to fix it. But
Right.
if you also don't want to change too many things at one time. So if someone is in a plateau and they come to me and they say, should we change our workouts? Should I increase cardio? Should I change my diet? Whoa, that's three things right there. We're going to pick one of those and we're going to change them.
Right.
Because it's just like somebody racing a car around a racetrack. You don't have the perfect setup. That's what qualifying's for. That's what practice is for. So you go out there and you see what is making you slow in a corner or slow on the straightaway. You come in, you report, your team fixes the car, and you go out again to see if it worked. It's not ever going to be perfect, but with proper coaching, you've got a path, you've got a channel, and you go down that channel and you start to get the results, but you have to enjoy it too. So
Right.
when you get caught up in a lot of these devices and a lot of stuff, it can be expensive, but it can also um, cause you to feel like you're failing or you're not doing
Right.
the right thing. They're awesome though. I love the Whoop and I love a lot of things that have helped me throughout the years. But mirrors and pictures don't lie, scales do.
Well,
Gallon a gallon
that's
of
a good
water
one.
weighs 8 pounds.
Right.
A woman on their menstrual cycle who's trying to lose weight, she might look at that scale and she's 3 pounds heavier and start freaking out because all she wants to do is lose weight. But
Well, and that's a good point, though. The mirror being one of those tools. It doesn't have to, and a scale. If you're, and like you kind of mentioned earlier, you personally are a dialed machine. You don't need a device to tell you this. Like you are dialed in. Then you've got the other end of the spectrum, someone who's 150 pounds overweight. We're going to use the scale for that person, I think, just to track some basic progress and make sure, because if they're losing weight, a lot of it's going to be fat. But we both know that you can fluctuate 5 to 8 pounds, 10 pounds with just water weight. But someone who's 150 pounds overweight, when we see the scale down 75 pounds, we know we're headed in the right direction. And I guess in that sense, a coach is the ultimate tool to a certain extent. Um, you can't beat that.
because that person that's 150 pounds overweight, if they're healthy and on no prescriptions, power to them, man. They are blessed because that means that they are healthy, but they're on the verge of something happening soon, right? But if they're 150 pounds overweight and they're on a ton of medications, as they lose 50, 60, 70 pounds, guess what falls off? Those medications. Those medications are
Right.
acidic in nature. That means your
Right.
toxins are now going to be removed because the medications are removed. You're going to be sleeping better now because you lost weight. So there's
Get
so
rid
many
of the CPAP
positive,
machine.
yeah. So there's so many positive benefits that happen as you're losing the weight. My thing is just don't get involved in so many different things at one time and never change more than one thing at a time. You have to enjoy this. And that's where a lot of people quit, right? January 1, they're all in the gym. February 1st, they're
Yeah.
all gone.
Yeah.
Because they want to, they're there because of something they did in the holidays, or they're there because, hey, I'm going to get this started. This is my year. And then they don't see anything move because they just run with all they got like a sprint. It's a marathon.
Yeah, it's definitely a marathon, and most people don't like the idea of running a marathon. But again, mindset is just it's the ultimate starting point for anybody. I think is that mindset. There's got to be that shift. There's got to be that coming to Jesus moment where you're ready to do what it takes. Otherwise, you could be the best coach in the world, and you're not going to get any results with somebody who's not ready. And the readiness, I think, is the mindset.
Right. Yeah. The mindset and believing in yourself too. There's discipline can grow, but you don't have to have it all in the beginning, but you have to make a decision that you want to make a change.
For sure. For sure. No, there's no question about that.
Well, as we continue these podcasts, we're definitely going to dive into some more deep information, and we're going to share a little bit more about ourselves as well and topics that are really important to us. But our listeners can always find us on our websites. Um, Mine is zekesamples.com, just like my first and last name. And go ahead,
Yeah, and
Nick.
if
What's
anyone
your
wants to reach out, I've got ciottiyecare.com. It's my website for our eye care clinic. And obviously, if anyone's local in Tampa, come see me for an eye exam. But yeah, my goal personally, and one of the reasons I'm working with Zeke is because I also plan on getting some one-on-one coaching stuff going. I have not opened it up to the public yet, but it is something coming down the pipeline. In the meantime, Zeke has his coaching that he is doing. So people can always reach out to us anytime. And if anyone has any requests or any subjects that they'd like us to go over and talk about, we would love the input, and we'd love to, really dive into the things that people want to hear about, as far as, health, fitness, and everything that's going on, in modern day when it comes to healthcare.
awesome? Well, until we speak again.
For sure. All right, everybody, stay healthy.